In the early hours of March 12, 2025, a mild autumn Wednesday, four men vanished without a trace. Beneath a partly cloudy sky, as the temperature hovered at a pleasant 18 degrees Celsius, Leonardo Machado, Carlos Eduardo Oliveira, Renato Ferreira, and Marcelo Santos were driving along a rural highway in the interior of Paraná, when all contact with them was suddenly lost. Leonardo, aged 34 and the owner of an agricultural supply store in Curitiba, had invited his three friends, 29-year-old Carlos, 32-year-old Renato, and 36-year-old Marcelo, all fellow entrepreneurs in the agribusiness sector, to a major trade fair in the city of Cascavel. They were there to explore the latest technological innovations. The four were well regarded in their community as successful businessmen, their combined enterprises employing over 200 people in the Curitiba metropolitan area. According to security logs from the event, the group departed at 11:47 p.m. Parking lot cameras captured them climbing into Leonardo's silver 2024 Toyota Hilux pickup truck. The last confirmed sighting of the vehicle was at 12:23 a.m. on the 12th, when it pulled into an Ipiranga gas station on the outskirts of Cascavel. Surveillance footage showed Leonardo filling the tank while the others bought water and snacks for the long drive home. They were in high spirits, talking excitedly about the equipment they'd seen at the fair, recalled Juliano Pereira, the attendant who served them. Leonardo mentioned he was planning to close a big deal next week. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. They paid in cash and drove off. Their plan, as they'd told their families, was to drive through the night back to Curitiba. The nearly 500-kilometer journey should have taken around 5.5 hours, putting their estimated arrival at 6 o'clock a.m. The last confirmed contact came at 12:48 a.m. when Leonardo sent a WhatsApp message to his wife, Fernanda. "On our way, see you in the morning," it read, accompanied by a photo of the four men inside the truck. The dashboard illuminated to show an odometer reading of 102,437 kilometers. At 6:30 a.m., with no word from her husband, a knot of worry began to form in Fernanda's stomach. Her calls went straight to voicemail. By 7:15, she had contacted the wives of the other three men, only to discover that none of them had heard anything since the previous night. At 8:47 a.m., she was at the Curitiba Missing Persons Bureau, filing a report. "My husband never goes silent," she stated in her initial deposition. "He always lets me know about any delay. He always stays in touch. I am certain something terrible has happened." The route the men were supposed to have taken is known for its rugged topography, with winding stretches of road that skirt the edge of Salto Caxias Lake. The area is predominantly rural, a patchwork of soy and corn farms and cattle ranches, interspersed with dense pockets of Atlantic forest and reforested areas. The initial search began at 10:20 that same morning. State Highway Patrol units started patrolling the intended route, scanning the roadsides for any sign of an accident or the missing vehicle. Simultaneously, mobile phone operators were contacted in an attempt to triangulate the men's locations. But the effort was fruitless. All four devices had gone silent shortly after 1:00 a.m., when Carlos Eduardo's phone last pinged a cell tower near the district of Rio do Salto. The first 48 hours after the disappearance were marked by an intense mobilization of Paraná's security forces. The civil police assigned Delegate Marcos Enrique Rocha from the Homicide and Personal Protection Division to lead the investigation. On March 13th, fire department teams, aided by sniffer dogs, began combing the forested areas along the highway. "We are working with several hypotheses at this moment, from an accident in a hard-to-reach area to the possibility of a crime," Delegate Rocha announced at a press conference on March 14th. What makes this case particularly challenging is the complete absence of a trail. We have no accident reports, the vehicle has not been found, and their cell phones are offline. An early line of inquiry focused on a potential kidnapping, given the men's financial standing. But the days that followed brought no ransom demands, and their bank accounts remained untouched. On March 15th, the federal police joined the case, acknowledging the possibility of an interstate crime, as the region borders Mato Grosso do Sul and is less than 100 kilometers from Paraguay. Satellite imagery was requested, and drones with thermal cameras were deployed to scan inaccessible terrain. A baffling detail soon emerged. The region's highways are monitored by a network of speed traps and cameras, yet after the truck was seen leaving the gas station in Cascavel, it was never recorded by any other monitoring equipment along its planned route. "It's as if the vehicle simply evaporated," said Lieutenant Colonel Ricardo Almeida of the Highway Patrol Battalion. "We have cameras on all the main roads and not a single one captured that specific truck passing by." Then, on March 18th, 6 days into the search, a new piece of information surfaced. A farmhand, João Pereira, reported seeing a silver pickup truck on a remote service road around 1:30 a.m. on the morning the men disappeared. "I thought it was strange," João stated in his testimony. "That road doesn't lead anywhere. It only gives access to a few farms before turning into dense woods. It's not the way to Curitiba." This tip redirected the search efforts to a 70-square-kilometer area of farmland and native forest. Between March 19th and 25th, a force of over 120 officers, firefighters, and local volunteers meticulously scoured the region. On March 22nd, they found the first piece of physical evidence, a chrome lighter engraved with the initials LM. Fernanda Machado later confirmed it belonged to her husband, Leonardo. It was found on the edge of a dirt track, 18 kilometers from the main highway, but an intensified search of the vicinity yielded nothing more. Meanwhile, investigators delving into the men's financial histories uncovered another noteworthy element. Just a month before they vanished, Leonardo and Marcelo had finalized a deal to supply agricultural equipment to a group of farmers on the Brazil-Paraguay border, a transaction valued at nearly $4.7 million. "We are investigating any possible link between this recent negotiation and the disappearance," Delegate Rocha stated on March 27th. "We cannot rule out the possibility that they were targeted in an ambush related to commercial interests or territorial disputes." As the days turned into weeks, the family's anguish deepened. On March 30th, they organized a motorcade from Curitiba to Cascavel, distributing flyers and drawing national media attention to their plight. "Every day that passes is torture," said Cristina Oliveira, Carlos Eduardo's wife, during a televised interview. "We don't know if they're alive, if they're hurt, if they need help. Our children ask for their fathers every day." The investigation was hampered by the vastness of the search area, the scarcity of witnesses in the sparsely populated countryside, and the lack of any electronic trail. The weather also turned against them. Between April 1st and 4th, heavy rains lashed western Paraná, complicating the search and threatening to wash away any remaining clues. On April 7th, 26 days after the men disappeared, a significant breakthrough occurred. A security camera on a rural property not registered with the official monitoring system had captured a pickup truck matching the description of Leonardo's Hilux at 2:14 a.m. on March 12th. The footage was grainy and dark, but it clearly showed the vehicle being closely followed by a dark pickup, possibly a Ford Ranger. "This is the first concrete evidence that the vehicle may have been intercepted," Delegate Rocha declared. "The images suggest they were followed and subsequently ambushed." The property owner, Antonio Cardozo, explained he had installed the camera after recent cattle thefts and hadn't thought to mention it, believing it wouldn't hold any relevant information. Forensic analysis confirmed the first vehicle was consistent with Leonardo's truck. The second vehicle could only be identified as a dark double-cab pickup. Based on this new evidence, the search was refocused within a 30-kilometer radius of the camera's location. On April 12th, exactly 1 month after the disappearance, a crucial discovery was made. In a dense thicket of woods 43 kilometers from where the camera had recorded the vehicles, searchers found fragments of automotive glass, pieces of plastic from a taillight, and tire marks suggesting a vehicle had been forced violently off the dirt road. "The evidence suggests a violent event occurred here," stated forensic expert Dr. Claudia Mendes. "The distribution of the fragments and the marks in the soil indicate the vehicle may have been run off the road, possibly after an intentional collision." Lab analysis later detected traces of blood on a piece of plastic, though the sample was too small for DNA extraction. Over the next few days, the search zeroed in on a 5-kilometer radius from this point. On April 18th, sniffer dogs led investigators to a clearing about 700 meters away. There, the team found fresh tire tracks, the remains of a campfire, and 5 spent 12-gauge shotgun shells. Then, on April 23rd, the investigation took a dramatic turn. A 27-year-old man named Pedro Silveira walked into the Cascavel police station claiming to have information. A local farm security guard, Silveira said he had witnessed part of the events that night but had been too afraid for his life to come forward sooner. "I was on patrol at a nearby property when I saw 2 pickups stop on a side road," Silveira recounted in a formal statement. "I saw armed men forcing other men out of one of the vehicles. It was dark and I was far away so I couldn't see faces, but I heard shouting and then gunshots." He described hiding and watching as the armed men forced the 4 occupants of the Hilux into the second truck. 2 of the assailants then took control of the Hilux, and both vehicles sped off down a road leading into more remote territory. Silveira explained he had remained silent out of fear of retaliation from the organized crime syndicates that operate in the border region. It was only after seeing the families suffering on the news and receiving assurances of police protection that he decided to speak. Based on his testimony on April 24th, the federal police, in a joint action with the Paraná Civil Police, launched Operation Crossroads, executing 14 search and seizure warrants on rural properties throughout the region. One of the primary targets of the investigation was the Tres Fronteras Ranch, located 67 kilometers from Cascavel. The property belonged to José Roberto Mendonça, a businessman with dealings in both Brazil and Paraguay. During a search of the ranch, investigators discovered Leonardo's Toyota Hilux pickup truck in a shed far from the main house. Its license plate had been changed, and it was in the process of being dismantled. Preliminary analysis revealed traces of blood inside the vehicle. "The evidence we've found confirms parts of the witness's account and establishes a direct link between this location and the disappearance of the 4 businessmen," stated Federal Police Chief Dr. Alexandra Guimarães, who was in charge of the operation. 2 ranch employees were detained at the scene. After interrogation, one of them, identified as 31-year-old Rodrigo Alves, confessed to his involvement in the crime. According to his statement, the kidnapping of the 4 businessmen was ordered by José Roberto Mendonça, who was allegedly dissatisfied with the terms of an equipment supply contract he had negotiated with Leonardo and Marcelo. The boss said they were selling him overpriced machinery and had siphoned off part of the down payment, Alves recounted in his deposition. "He told us to just scare them, but things got out of control." According to Alves's confession, after the ambush on the rural road, the four businessmen were taken to a remote area within the Tres Fronteras ranch, where they were interrogated and assaulted. During the confrontation, he claimed Carlos Eduardo fought back and tried to escape and was shot. The other three were then executed to eliminate any witnesses. They were buried in a wooded area on the property near a creek that floods during the rainy season, Alves indicated. The boss said the water would wash away any trace. Based on this information, on April 26th, forensic teams began excavating the indicated area. After 2 days of meticulous searching, on April 28th, they located 4 bodies in an advanced state of decomposition, buried approximately 2 meters deep in a hard-to-reach area. The remains were sent to the Medical Legal Institute in Curitiba, where on May 2nd, DNA tests confirmed they were the 4 missing businessmen. Preliminary autopsy reports indicated that all were victims of gunshot wounds with characteristics of an execution. José Roberto Mendonça, identified as the mastermind of the crime, was not found during the operation. According to the federal police, he had left Brazil for Paraguay 3 days after the businessmen disappeared. An international arrest warrant was issued and Mendonça's name was added to Interpol's red list. On May 10th, following an intense international cooperation effort, Mendonça was located and arrested in Pedro Juan Caballero, a Paraguayan city on the border with Brazil. The businessman denied all accusations, claiming to be the victim of a conspiracy. The investigation soon revealed that the crime had more complex motivations than initially assumed. Beyond the alleged overpricing in the agricultural equipment contract, documents found during the searches indicated that Leonardo and his partners had discovered a money laundering scheme involving the purchase of machinery used to prepare land for illegal marijuana cultivation in Paraguay, near the border. This case exposed the complex criminal relationships that exist in the border region, where legitimate agribusiness often intertwines with illicit activities, stated Dr. Guimaraes at a press conference on May 15th. The bodies of the 4 businessmen were finally returned to their families and buried on May 5th in a joint ceremony in Curitiba, which brought together more than 2,000 people. "No amount of justice will bring our husbands back," declared Fernanda Machado, who, along with the other widows, founded the Memory and Justice Association, dedicated to supporting families of violent crime victims in Paraná. "But we will fight to ensure that crimes like this do not go unpunished, and that other families do not have to endure what we have." José Roberto Mendonça and 6 other individuals accused of participating in the crime are awaiting trial, facing charges of qualified homicide, concealment of a corpse, criminal conspiracy, money laundering, and other related offenses. If convicted, their combined sentences could exceed 100 years in prison. The case also exposed vulnerabilities in the monitoring system for secondary roads and borders, leading to the implementation of the Secure Frontier Program, a joint federal and state initiative to intensify surveillance in strategic regions. 3 months after the official resolution of the case, the impact of the disappearance and death of the 4 businessmen continues to reverberate through their families and the social, economic, and public security spheres of Paraná. United by a common tragedy, the victims' families transformed their pain into social action. The Memory and Justice Association, founded by the widows, already serves more than 30 families of violent crime victims in the state, offering legal, psychological, and financial support. In July of 2025, the association successfully passed a bill in the Paraná Legislative Assembly that establishes more rigorous and immediate protocols for disappearance cases. The Leonardo, Carlos, Renato, and Marcelo law mandates that searches for missing persons under suspicious circumstances must begin immediately without the waiting period that was previously common, explained lawyer Patricia Mendez, who represents the association. If this law had existed then, perhaps the outcome could have been different. In the business world, the companies founded by the four men faced significant challenges after their deaths. Leonardo's agricultural implement store was taken over by his wife, Fernanda. Despite her initial inexperience, she managed to retain all 72 employees and expand operations into the family farming sector. "I transformed my pain into strength to preserve my husband's legacy," Fernanda stated in an interview. "Every piece of equipment we sell to small farmers is a way of honoring his memory, as he always believed in the potential of Paraná's agribusiness." Carlos Eduardo's company, specializing in irrigation systems, was acquired by an international group but kept its headquarters in Curitiba and absorbed most of its employees. The companies of Renato and Marcelo were merged and are now managed by a board of family members with professional advisory. In the realm of public security, the case prompted a complete review of monitoring protocols in rural and border areas. The Secure Frontier program, implemented in June 2025, has already installed over 200 new electronic surveillance points on secondary and rural roads, creating a monitoring network that hinders the movement of unregistered vehicles. The case of the Western Vanished exposed a critical vulnerability in our security system, affirmed the Paraná Secretary of Public Security, Colonel Roberto Almeida. "We are determined to close these gaps and ensure that our rural borders are as secure as our urban ones." Investigations into the connections between legitimate agribusiness and criminal organizations in the border region are ongoing. Since the scheme was uncovered during this case, the federal police have launched 3 other operations, resulting in the seizure of agricultural machinery valued at over 80 million reais, used in illicit activities. "What we discovered was just the tip of the iceberg," declared Chief Alexandra Guimarães. "There is an entire underground economy operating in the shadows of the border's agribusiness, and we are only beginning to understand its extent." In the judicial sphere, the case against José Roberto Mendonça and the other accused is proceeding rapidly. At a preliminary hearing on July 20th, the court denied all habeas corpus petitions and maintained their preventive detention. The trial is expected to begin in October 2025 and could become one of the longest and most complex in Paraná's legal history. This case represents not only 4 brutally interrupted lives, but also a direct attack on the rule of law and the economic security of the region, stated prosecutor Dr. Luciana Campos, who is leading the prosecution. "We will seek the maximum penalty for all involved." For the local communities, the case brought to light a reality many preferred to ignore: the presence of organized crime infiltrating legitimate economic activities. In public hearings held in the city councils of Cascavel, Toledo, and other towns in the region, citizens reported similar pressures faced by small and medium-sized business owners. "After what happened to those 4, many people started to say what was previously only whispered," commented José Pereira, a councilman from Boa Vista da Aparecida. "The fear still exists, but now there is also a collective determination not to let crime continue to set the rules." For the investigators who dedicated months to the case, its resolution brought a mix of professional satisfaction and reflection on the system's limitations. "We managed to bring justice for the families, but we know there are other similar cases that remain unsolved," pondered investigator Marcos Henrique Rocha. "Every solved case teaches us valuable lessons on how to improve our methods and protocols." The impact of the case transcended Paraná's borders, drawing attention to the need for more effective national policies on border control and international cooperation. In August 2025, Brazil and Paraguay signed a new judicial and police cooperation agreement, facilitating the extradition of criminals and the real-time sharing of information. If you have followed this story to its conclusion, it is because you care about the cases that scar families forever. In the rural communities where Leonardo, Carlos, Renato, and Marcelo passed on that fateful March night, memorial plaques have been installed reminding all who travel those roads of the high price that can be paid when crime operates in the shadows and the state fails to protect its citizens. 4 lives, 4 families, 4 companies, hundreds of jobs, and countless dreams were cut short here, reads the memorial plaque installed at the site where the bodies were found, now a small sanctuary regularly visited by family and friends. May their memory inspire us to build a future where justice prevails over impunity. We invite you to follow our channel for more investigative cases like this one. Your support is crucial in ensuring that stories like these are not forgotten and that the search for truth continues even in the most complex and challenging of cases.